Coming to you live from Bellingham, Washington. Another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. We're going to start with pouring some batch brew, as always. Yeah. I will say, just a shout out. I bought another Hasami mug. And for those of you who have listened to the podcast a handful of times and are followers of it, I love my Hasami mug. And the first one I had, was like a classic. It was just like a really great mug with a handle on it. So for those of you watching on Spotify or YouTube, you'll see. But the classic mug had the handle on it, and it was like the light brown color. And then recently we were in Vancouver, and there was a shop called, what is it, Old Faithful? Old Faithful. Yeah. So here it is. This is the classic light brown Hasami.
Let's see there.
Boom. So for those of you watching,
different sizes.
Yeah,
so
they're
is this
different
like
sizes.
an 8-ounce?
But I think that this round part is bigger.
No.
Oh no. Oh, and they're stackable.
They're stackable. Yeah, they have a little lip.
Heck yeah.
Dude, that's how we stack them at the shop.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's even more powerful. So anyways, so we have like a light sand colored. Also, by the way, dude, I was driving the other day and saw a Ford Bronco in this color. It looked so good. Like that looked like a spectacular paint job. Anyways, this like sandy color, and then I picked up this Hasami mug with no handle, no nothing, kind of like a darker brown.
Mm-hmm.
I've been loving every sip out of this. This makes coffee taste better.
I feel like with this one, this is what you should be drinking out of if you're wearing all essentials, fear of God.
Oh, 100%.
In oatmeal. This would be Jerry Lorenzo's mug.
Probably.
It might be already. I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know Jerry that well.
The only thing what I'm also envisioning is Seinfeld. What's his name? Jerry?
No. Wait. Why am I blanking? I know. Oh shoot! This is embarrassing. I'm blanking on the podcast with Seinfeld. Is it Jerry? Because I just said Jerry Lorenzo. That's why I'm like, can't be Jerry.
Maybe I said it because you said it. I don't know. But anyways,
Kramer.
Kramer?
Yeah, I think so.
No,
Yeah,
not Kramer. No,
the one with the big hair, right?
I don't think Kramer is his name. Anyways, you guys. Oh gosh, we need a little bit of a fact check. I can envision him when in his Kith drop.
Oh yes,
with this mug. Yeah. This would be
it's
powerful.
Jerry Seinfeld. You're
Jerry
right. You're
Seinfeld.
right.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
There's something to do with Jerry's. You Jerry's. There's something about you guys doing some big things. But anyways, yeah, I can just imagine him drinking out of this mug and just absolutely incredible. So, anyways, the Hasami mugs are the best.
Mm-hmm.
Serge, what if we just need to resell them?
I mean, wholesale account? Maybe. Might not be a bad idea, actually.
I just love them so much.
Hold on, are you talking about this guy?
Yeah.
That's Kramer. But I guess it...
Wait, let me see. No, this is Kramer. Kramer's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Kramer is hilarious.
Not Jerry Seinfeld, but yes, Kramer.
I love one of my favorite scenes is he comes in and he's like, "Don't smell, don't tell, scotch." That was my favorite of him. No, I was talking about Jerry. Because he was with Kith. He did that brand deal. So.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, I just love these mugs so much that I'm like,
they're so good.
They're just incredible, like truly works of art. But
yes, Jerry Seinfeld for Kith Fall 2022.
Is that his real name?
That's his real name, and his
no way.
Yeah, name in the show, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
They named the show after him, around him. The show is called Seinfeld.
Yeah,
and that's his real name.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah. It's like I think Will Smith in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's Will Smith.
No way.
Right?
I didn't even
Am
know.
I crazy? Like, I feel like, man, this is turning into a strange episode already. Gonna do one more fact check.
Oh gosh. I hope. I don't know. Do we have any Seinfeld fans? Maybe we have any the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fans. Drop it down in the comments.
Will Smith as Will Smith.
Will Smith as Will Smith.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. I just watched something recently where the name was the same name in real life, and I was like, wow, incredible. Anyways,
It's cooled down so much. Let it sit for too long.
It's not bad.
Just super weak.
Just super weak, yeah. I will say, even though it's weak, it's not over or under, I would say. It's just weak.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, maybe that does mean that it's under. Maybe not.
No, you can definitely have weak and over extracted coffee.
You could. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Yeah.
This is a dark roast that we roasted up. This is for the latte art throwdown. So we did a special latte art throwdown roast and some leftovers, right?
Dude, knowing the curve on this, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, I know. That's the only thing that's running through my mind right now.
Wow, this is so weird.
I'm like,
maybe it's just that dark that I don't know what matters. I don't know. This is
who cares about fixing the curve?
I mean, I still want to fix the curve on this roast.
Dude, a flick like that causes lots of body.
It's still weak. I mean, okay, let's say you go to, we don't have living grandparents anymore that we know of. But let's say you go to your grandparents' house and they brew up this batch. Are you happy?
I'd vibe.
I think so. I mean, if you served in a Asami mug or they served in an Asami mug,
Are you kidding me? A grandpa that comes out with an Asami mug in his green cardigan. Shoo-wee. Yeah, I can't complain. Even though I probably would not want to drink this every day.
It's not my favorite. Yeah.
I definitely would not.
How much better can it taste, right?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
What does
that's actually
don't know.
no, that's
I don't know.
You stumped me, but then I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's the thing I don't know is how much. What if there's a whole world of decent stuff that you can get just if you could roast it better? Just nobody. Not that nobody has tried. It's just.
Yeah. I just don't drink
challenge.
dark roast. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it. I can't give you an opinion on what does a dark roast taste with a declining ROR and no crashes, no flicks, and what does a dark roast taste with whatever.
Yeah.
Just throw it in, turn on gas,
and you just
70%, just let it
send
rip.
it to to color. Yeah, it's very interesting,
dude. But toss me some French vanilla creamer.
Oh God, no.
Dude, and then a perfectly fine glazed Krispy Kreme donut. I'm fine. Dude, I'm happy. Only on a road trip.
And you can't put that in a Hasami mug. It has to be like a diner mug.
Yeah.
One of those thick beefy
No, a
diner
styrofoam
mugs.
mug? No, styrofoam is really bad for the environment. That's really bad. Unless you have one designated styrofoam mug that you literally just use for those occasions.
Or you on your way out you stop by Cash and Carry and you snag a sleeve of those cups, to-go cups, and you take them on the road trip.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
You're the designated
no, my friend Steve McVeigh has a coffee cup, a real coffee cup that looks like a Solo cup. So it's ceramic or something. He's sipping coffee in the morning.
Sipping coffee or Irish coffee during his lives.
You're brother, I don't know what you're drinking.
I don't want to know. So,
it's only 8:30.
Ignorance is bliss. Yes, I'll take it. Yeah, but that being said, brewing coffee at home can be a whirlwind, and I don't even know. We were going to start this podcast somewhere. Now my mind's in a different place.
No, I think Nate Repper.
Nathaniel.
Yeah, big shout out to Nathaniel Repper.
Nathaniel's legendary. Just did. I was a latte art judge with him.
Oh yeah, nice.
It was fun. It was a good time.
Good time. We were chatting the other day, and we were talking about recipes, brewing recipes, and we got into a conversation around complex recipes and very simple recipes. And I think it's a very interesting conversation we're talking about, because there's so much that we can discuss when it comes to what does complexity in a brew recipe yield in flavor versus what does the enjoyment of just having the simplicity of pouring some water and let it do its thing. There's pros and cons to both. So I think just to start everything off, I would always say keep it simple. Wouldn't you agree? Like if you're beginning, especially if you just bought your first pour over set, maybe, or you've even had a pour over set like for a while, but you may not have all of the tools. You have the key elements of brewing a pour over. Keep it simple.
For sure. To be honest, that just throws me back to when I got my first V60 dripper ever. And I was grinding with a Hario hand grinder, and I was just trying to figure out how do I make pour overs, because I knew that these coffees were really better. I've seen it done at cafes, at like small little coffee bars. I was intrigued by it, but when I went on YouTube, I will say it was the most discouraging and unhelpful experience ever. And this was like maybe 10 years ago now. No, maybe 9 years ago. And it was very unhelpful because there was so many recipes and all of them doing all kinds of different things and all of them claiming that they were delivering the most optimal flavor, but then they were doing very different things. And you're like, what the heck is going on? And I wish somebody just started a video and said, hey, there's plenty of recipes out there and they might all be tasty. This is how I do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is why.
Yeah.
And if somebody could have just even told me that, because I felt like if you don't do it, X or Y, you'll get it wrong. And for a beginner, that's very intimidating because you don't want to get it wrong. You don't want to be a noob. Totally. You are.
Yeah. That also reminds me of, I remember Trip Kimball, my mentor in Florida. Yeah. So I filmed a little book trailer for him long time ago. It was fun. And in that trailer, he brews a Chemex. And I think that's, when I think of simplicity, I kind of get a flashback of that. It was just simply a Chemex on a stove, right between the two burners, because that's like the space that was there, and there was like this dramatic lighting. And he just takes a regular old kettle to boil, blooms it, doesn't swirl, doesn't do anything, and then just fills it up until, the cone is full or he sees the level. Obviously, we know that won't, yield the highest extraction yield percentage. Yes. Like, it won't. We get that. But there's some beauty in that simplicity. And there's also, like, a benefit to, like, you invest X amount and you yield X amount of, or Y amount of, like, tasty stuff.
Right.
There is a give and take in that. But the beauty of simplicity also has a reward of a tasty cup.
Your ROI on that. Your return on investment, that is. Yeah. But yeah, I will say, Serge, I'm impressed. If that's where you shot it, right under that light, I'm impressed. You knew a thing or two.
Cinematic.
That's as cinematic as it gets. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I think not only that, but I think it's like the whole diminishing returns thing. Yeah. Like, cool, if you buy a grinder at $600 or you buy a grinder at $1,200, your return difference, it might be incremental. You may or may not be able to taste it. Like, I am always the kind of person nowadays, I'm like, just do a blind. That's it, and let that dictate. Because I think most of the time we're overcomplicating these things because we want to get the utmost best, which there's nothing wrong with it. But then there's very marginal gains to it, like very slim. And so sometimes I'm like, especially with all these new brewers coming out, I'm like, people are still using the V60 on the World Brewers Cup Championship, and there's a reason probably. Yeah. I don't know. It's been around for so long. And so the point is not to discourage innovation or growth or pursuit of the utmost best. And if you've been a listener of this podcast, we're always constantly in pursuit of that, a better experience, a better results, better something. But we also just can't forget the basics, because I think the basics matter. They're foundational. They're strong. They're good. Yeah.
And I think if you're not strong on the basics, like if you haven't dialed in yourself in basics of like what it means to brew coffee, and you're like trying to step ahead or catch up with the crowd, and the crowd is like, talking about water composition. Like I would say like, okay, slow down, figure out the basics. Like I love teaching and talking about stuff like, brew height or flow rate height. Like how far from the slurry should you be pouring? How fast should you be pouring? And I think those things are important. Like that's for sure. I'm not diminishing those things. And I think you should pursue that kind of level of quality.
Of course.
Do it. But they shouldn't be at an expense or at a cost of forgetting the basics or not realizing like what actually is simple and what makes a tasty cup of coffee.
I heard somebody on Instagram or something talk a lot about that. Man, I don't forget. I forget who said it, but it was somebody that was like pretty well known. That just, or maybe it was a meme. Like it could
well known,
be well known 50% Arabica. But it was something that I read or saw that was like, you're focusing on, this water composition, but then you're like neglecting the most basic rules of brewing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, sure. Yeah. But I will say you had a very interesting story that just happened recently, which piqued my interest. You should share that because I think some people might get some good value, and there's stuff that I'm still thinking about as well.
Yeah, I had this gentleman come into the cafe very late into the day. We're already closing up. It was literally, I want to say, minutes before close. And he comes in and he looks at the coffee bags. And I start helping him with purchasing a bag. And my automatic assumption, I made a judgment call and assumed that this person is just trying to grab a bag of coffee that's very easy and quick to brew. So I recommended them towards towards one of the coffees that I consider is easier to brew, or, I don't know. That's hard to get. It's hard to assume and guess, but needless to say, there's a lot of assumptions. So when I recommend that, the person looks at me and gives me some feedback to where I realize, oh, this person is actually looking for something different. I was wrong in my assumption. Yeah. And they were looking for a fairly like light roasted coffee. I recommended something else. And then that piqued my interest. So I asked, like, what are you brewing on at home? Because he let me know that he was brewing on an espresso machine. But, again, I assumed maybe it's just a Mr. Coffee espresso machine, whatever. And he was like, oh, I actually brew on a lever, Pavlino, the Italian espresso machine. And we started chatting because I really love the aesthetic of that machine. I've never used one, but I love how they look. And as we're chatting, I'm starting to pick up on elements that I'm like, he seems to know what he's talking about, but he's not using the same jargon or language that I'm used to hearing from home baristas.
Yeah.
So we keep chatting, and he actually ended up buying a cappuccino and literally on the spot drank it there, like within minutes, and made these comments about like processing, again, without using all this like coffee talk, and basically like explained everything about that coffee and had no idea how the coffee was processed even. Yeah. So it was very interesting. And then finally he takes out this video and he shows me about how he's pulling a shot. Mm-hmm. There's no scales, no timers, no nothing. But as I watch him do it, I'm like, he's actually like pre-infusing and then giving more pressure and then gradually releasing the pressure at the end. It's like what I see so many home baristas talk about, the classic of, how you want to eliminate bitterness in a shot and stuff like that. And I asked him, I was like, hey, like, how long are you pre-infusing? He had no idea what I was talking about. He's like, what's pre-infusion?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you let a little bit of pressure in with a little bit of water. He's like, oh yeah, I do that. And I watch the screen fill up with coffee. And when it fills up with coffee, I start actually adding more pressure. I was like, dude, like, how does he know that? Like, just general classic home coffee person that's brewing coffee in the morning.
Yeah. I think what fascinates me about that story is somebody who, maybe didn't see something somewhere online, or maybe she did, I don't know, minimally. But somebody who's not in like, I guess who's not like in it, but also somebody through experimentation, through practice, through just noticing and drinking, just learned their way from his first home experience to where he is right now. And even more so, I think that's a very natural and beautiful progression. And so with this podcast, we're not saying that, hey, you need to just do the simple things and don't innovate. Once again, the point is more that, hey, let's not forget about the basics, and that actually a lot of times the basics can get you 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
What all those times of studying, researching, following all these crazy recipes, they're going to get you maybe from like a 90% to a 94 or a 96. It's very incremental. And so it's balancing the two, is knowing that there's beauty in actually the simple things most of the time will get you most of the way. But please, may that lead you, hopefully, that'll lead you and encourage you to push through that last percentage.
Yeah, it reminds me of that one video I shot again at in Atlanta, that video. And I made, a common basic mistake, shooting in 24 frames at 100 shutter speed.
Yeah.
And it's like no matter how good your shots were, no matter how artistic I did my shots, how smooth they were, I made a common mistake. And I made a mistake that when you're watching, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
You did a very good job in helping me fix some things in that video. But at the end of the day, a mistake is a mistake. And if I would have actually had that part dialed and maybe not got as a cinematic shot, it probably would have got me farther than just a cinematic shot with wrong settings.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I will say also is like the home barista kind of niche crowd over, the past years that has arisen, all the Reddit threads, the barista forum threads, the Discord channels, the YouTube channels, the Facebook groups, all of that is actually, I think, really beneficial because it's actually given way and space for people who want to grow and learn, for there to be resources, helpful resources that they can go and study and look into. That's powerful. Like if you do go back 10 years, you might not have had all those resources. Like that's crazy. We live in a beautiful time where there's lots of information that you can use to grow and get those results, or even just to nerd out and just to geek out. And that's fine. That's like, there's beauty in craftsmanship and passion. And I mean, we're a big part of that as well. Like just nerding out about, for us, that's a lot of it is less brewing, but more like roasting and nerding about green quality and roasting specifics and curves and all that stuff. So,
I mean, in the same context, like Nate and I love talking about, different green coffees that either we're buying or Velton's buying. And how great they are and how underrated some coffees are and how overrated other coffees. We love that area of the conversation. So you, definitely not saying shy away from all the complexities and the niche things. No, just don't forget the basics. I think also within all these complexities that we're bringing up, we definitely we have to realize that home baristas have paved a way in certain areas. I remember talking to someone, don't remember exactly who it was, but we were talking about timing shots and how that phenomenon started and who realized that. And someone made a comment that, it was this famous person started it. And another person's like, well, actually, and they had the receipts. They were like, no, it was a home barista. They actually came up with this idea and then they passed it on and it got into competition. And I think there's room for home baristas to experiment without much risk or loss. I guess the biggest risk there is if you mess up a coffee, you don't have to drink it. It's way different than if you mess up a coffee for a guest, they don't enjoy it, they don't come back, and you just hurt the business. But if you mess up a coffee for yourself, you just lost your dose of coffee and your time, but you can always remake it. Like no one got hurt.
I think that's a very important thing to highlight here, because I think when you do it because you just love the craft and you're passionate about brewing coffee, getting the utmost best extraction with the best coffee with the best way possible, and you don't have to worry about running a business, doing all these things. Hopefully you didn't buy like $10,000 worth of gear on your credit card and you can't pay it off because you have to pay for all the other things. Yep. Don't do that. But if that's not you, and if you wisely invested into all this gear that you enjoy using, then guess what? At the end of the day, you're right. Like, you're not losing very much by brewing a bad cup of coffee. Yeah. But I will say there are some very interesting things that can come out of practicing, out of learning, out of just experimenting. Yeah. Because it's not within the pressures of a high stake, of a high loss. Like, and I think the downside is oftentimes growth gets stunted and suppressed, and innovation gets suppressed because of those limitations of, money or losses, or you're afraid to do something different. I mean, we see this actually, I will say, we see this a lot with farmers and producers. Yeah. Where experimentation at their own cost is a very scary thing to do. Yeah. With different experiments, but it changes a little bit different when somebody can approach somebody and say, hey, can you experiment with this? I'll pay for the cost and the losses. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that just leaves room for a lot of really great things.
Yeah. So I think that's super important part of being a home barista is having that privilege and being able to do that. Gosh, I had another thought. Like, I'm glad that you made that connection with producers. It's actually like a very genius and excellent connection. Because, so I think a lot of the times for like home baristas, the advantage is the freedom to be curious, to be adventurous, to explore. And sometimes if you're a barista in a cafe, you're also getting paid to do a certain job or a role. So you have to execute on that. And I'm not saying like, especially like for me, I know like I work in a coffee shop and I would pride myself and pride the company that I work for, Narrative, to be very like free to give baristas opportunities to even dial in and choose a coffee for the day. Like there is freedom in that, I'm saying, but it's a different type of freedom than a home barista, right? Yeah. So, sure. And when I'm at home and when I have all of these devices to brew with and I have some coffee, dude, I just go ham. I don't care. Like, am I going to drink this or not? Maybe I'll take a couple of sips and then it sparks another idea like, oh, I should try this. How will that affect extraction? So there's this curiosity that there's a fire behind it. There's this adventurous spirit behind it that allows you to come up with new ideas and maybe discover ideas that no one's ever tried, Mm-hmm. I mean, one of those, like this is a question for you. Like, where do you rate Jonathan Gagne as a home barista? Or is he a home barista? No, he's on another level.
We'll call him a home physicist.
Yeah, home physicist. But I think people like that are super smart, educated, maybe have a background in something else other than coffee, but they're intrigued by coffee and they have room to explore because they're at home.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of gold to the home barista community. So shout out to all you home baristas out there that are listening to the pod. Thank you so much for listening, and we love it. I mean, it's a huge blessing and a huge opportunity in the coffee industry. So I don't know. Final thoughts,
dude. Keep brewing.
Keep brewing, folks.
Keep brewing.
Yes. Alrighty. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Hit that follow, subscribe button. I don't even know what the names. What do they have? Follow, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
I don't know. Follow, subscribe.
Check mark. The plus mark, top right hand corner.
Yes, and leave some reviews also. We really appreciate that, and that helps the podcast. So thank you so much for listening. And remember, one last thing. Reflect what's good.